All right, come on back and find your seats. So we have with us this morning our dear friend from the anniversary concert, Gary Lynn Floyd. Gary is the artist in residence at the Reno Center for Spiritual Living. He has won Posse Music Awards, as most of our musicians have. He's a dear, dear friend of our own Karen Drucker, who is going to be, by the way, here live next week doing music for us. So we're glad about that on Picnic Sunday. And of course, all of his CDs are available in all the usual places and also on his website, GaryLynnFloyd.com. So make sure you check that out if you want to know more about Gary. And we look forward to having him here with us in the future again. But for now, we have him online. So please stand now and join us as we sing this opening song, One in Unity.
Good morning, Golden Gate Center for Spiritual Living. Gary Lynn Floyd here with you again. So good to be back. I'd like you to join me with this first song. It's a song that I wrote with our friend Karen Drucker. It's called One in Unity. It goes like this. It's easy. We are one. We are in unity. We are a loving, inclusive community. We are grateful. Everyone is welcome here. We spread our love into the world. Sing it with me again. We are one. We are in unity. We are a loving, inclusive community. We are grateful. Everyone is welcome here. We spread our love into the world. Second part. We are one in unity. We are one. We are one. We are one in unity. We are one. We are one. We are one. We are in unity. We are a loving, inclusive community. We are grateful. Everyone is welcome here. We spread our love into the world. We are one in unity. We are one. We are one. We are one in unity.
You got it
We
now.
are one. We are one. We are one. We are in unity. We are a loving, inclusive community. We are grateful. Everyone is welcome here. We spread our love into the world. We are one in unity. We are one. We are one. We are one in unity. We are one. We are one. One more time. We are one. We are in unity. We are a loving, inclusive community. We are grateful. Everyone is welcome here. We spread our love into the world. We spread our love into the world. We spread our love into the world.
Nice.
Ah, you sound great this morning.
He's right.
Love you.
You may be seated. So we're preparing to turn within now that we've done all the without, right? And everybody's had a chance to make themselves known and present. So if you didn't get welcomed by anybody else because you walked in the door after that happened, give yourself a pat on the back. You're here. Good job. So we're going to turn within now. I want to invite Reverend Judith Fleener up to give us our opening.
God, the infinite presence, the delight of life. It is light and it is in darkness. It is joy balanced with sadness. There is love, and within any feeling of discomfort, there is always the presence of the One. God is the infinite chaos from which order comes. It is the joy that enlivens hearts. It is the breath of life. And as this breath of life breathes me, It breathes in and through and all beings. There is no separation between me and the one infinite power that is the cause of all creation and all illumination. In the center of this one, which is in the center of me, there is always a perfect calm, a center in the storm. In that place, only optimism lives. For it is in the center of the storm, in the center of the chaos, that all creation is formed. As with the caterpillar who goes into the cocoon and becomes the mush, that decomposition is inevitably needed for the butterfly to fly. And so it is in this knowledge and in this remembering of who I truly am. I am the delight, the love, the energy of creation, paired with that universal infinite energy of creation, that I claim for this time here in this room and in this online presence, whether it be today or years in the future, that this message, that this music, that this community brings to the heart and the soul of each being that remembrance, that in the darkest times, there is that light right within the heart, which is the divine spark to bring new fire, new flames, new ideas, new inspiration, new friendships, new relationships, new abundance, renewed health and vitality. And it is when we stay in that center of the storm, in the calm, and remember the truth that the divine is in the center of every experience, that the divine is always for further expansion and goodness and love. And so this is the inspiration I claim for this time here together, that Mary stands in the center of her divine being and speaks with passion those words that need to heal hearts, and that the music that we sing together with Gary Lynn Floyd brings our hearts into unity and harmony. And that all the busyness of welcoming new people in conversations and setting up and tearing down brings us to that place of remembering that we are one. And so I just give great thanks for this community, for this time together, for the healing of hearts and minds. And I let it be. And so it is.
And so it is. Thank you, Judith.
I resolve to evolve. To evolve, I resolve. I resolve to evolve. To evolve, I resolve. I won't take your word for it. I gotta find out for myself. And when I do, a world I never knew gets clear, and I'm out of here and into a new creation. I resolve to evolve. To evolve, I resolve. I resolve to evolve. To evolve, I resolve. My life is my adventure. Oh, and change is my best friend. And all I want to be is just beyond my doubt. So I'm stepping out and into a new creation. I resolve to evolve. To evolve, I resolve. 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 To evolve, I resolve.
Evolving. It's hard work sometimes, that evolving. I mean, we want to be our best. And I would prefer to be my best automatically, without any effort on my part. I would just as soon improve at a constant rate without any struggle, easily, so that the next time something confusing or frustrating or challenging happens in my life, that I meet it with absolute serenity. Occasionally that occurs, but it's not a regular thing. Usually it doesn't start off that way. So this month we're looking at the idea of how to see through negative conditions. And what I find is it's so much like growing in consciousness with anything else, that it's easier after the crisis moment of whatever the difficulty is, however large or small. It's after that moment is past and I look back and feel like I could have handled that better, that I realize I haven't met it with the kind of equanimity that I intended to, or that I feel like I'd like to. However, sometimes in that process, I can readjust my awareness so that I realize that I either am overreacting or there's another way to see this particular thing. And it would be useful then to gravitate toward another perspective, which gives me some elbow room in terms of what I want to do. So in a way, I'm talking about a kind of optimistic approach to life where we let go and forgive ourselves. I was talking about last week a little bit. We forgive ourselves when we screw up, and then we start again right away. Because, guilt is not a useful thing to spend time or energy on. Regret, remorse, guilt. It's fine to take responsibility, but not waste time in those kinds of things because it drains our energy. And it really doesn't do anybody any good. I think the shame and guilt, it's appropriate to recognize when you've done something wrong and to make amends. But spending time feeling guilty or ashamed or regretful is an energy drain that doesn't actually serve the situation or the other person or persons involved. Usually, I think it could be a way of trying to make up for what we did by at least feeling bad about it. That maybe that balances it out. Like, that was not good what I did, so I should feel bad for a requisite amount of time so that I come out even. But I'm not sure that exactly works that way. Do you know what I mean? I think it just takes energy away from us. And so it's helpful to be able to look at a negative situation and consider the positive possibilities in it as soon as we can. I'm reminded of this story of these identical twins who were put into a study because their personalities were so opposite. They were put into a study of identical twins, looking at their way of looking at life. And one of these twins was an optimist and one was a pessimist. So they put them through identical tests to see how they'd react. And so, sure enough, when the test results came back, the person who'd been holding this study said to their parents, well, you're right, one of your girls is totally a pessimist and the other one is an optimist. And they said, well, we know that, but how did you find that out? They said, well, we put them through some identical tests. One of the tests was we put both of the girls into rooms full of shiny new toys. And one of the girls just was gleeful and she went at it and she played with everything in the room. And the other one sat in the corner and cried. And when we asked her why she was crying in a room full of all these toys, she said, well, all these toys are going to break eventually. Then we put the two girls into, forgive us, a room full of horse manure. And they each in their own room looked at that. Of course, the girl who's a pessimist kept right on crying. But the odd thing was that the girl who's an optimist also laughed and clapped her hands in that room. And so we said to her, why are you so cheerful in a room full of manure? She said, well, if there's this much manure, there's got to be a pony in here somewhere. That one is an optimist. He said, the interesting thing is that both of them have set their course in their life by those attitudes, because the way they see the world will determine their experience and their choices. And so the parents went away with the two girls, desiring to help one of them become more optimistic and the other one become maybe a little more realistic. When we approach things, I find, and this may only be true of me, I find that sometimes it's difficult for me to meet a difficulty with optimism because that's not my first reaction to it. I always have a first reaction. It's kind of a knee-jerk reaction. The first thing that happens is that I experience shock and discouragement or disappointment and worry. Those three things, like right away. Then sometimes I get irritated or annoyed or angry. Those are like knee-jerk reactions. And so my first response is kind of dread and fear about what's going to happen if this happens or if that happens. Anybody else out there go into the what ifs, but the negative what ifs? Yeah? So that tends to be our first reaction. And Ernest Holmes, in Words That Heal Today, said, why is it so difficult for us to have faith? The answer is simple enough. We're so weighted with experiences that contradict faith. It's not easy to turn from negative conditions to a positive faith in God. Carefully, we should cultivate the smallest spark of faith. And we should always be reminding ourselves that there is a power upon which we may rely. We must throw ourselves with complete abandonment into this power, for it will never fail us. I think the thing that worries me is that I forget that I'm not having to figure out everything myself. I know that, but it's not the first thing I think of. When I run into a difficulty, the first thing I think of is all the ways that it could go wrong and all the things I'm going to have to try and do and, how am I going to handle this? And it's all me. What Holmes is suggesting is that in that moment then, that I remind myself that the solution doesn't have to be up to me. There is an infinite mind around me and within me that knows exactly what to do. It may not seem to be my mind at the moment, but it's there. And if I can have faith in that, I will find my way through this. So I can come to it with greater optimism because I can rely on that something that is greater than myself that knows, but is within me also at the same time. Harry Truman said, a pessimist is one who makes difficulties of his opportunities. And an optimist is one who makes opportunities of his difficulties. Now, that's certainly the direction I would like to go. And Mahatma Gandhi said, "When I despair," and think about the choices that man made in his life. He said, "When I despair, I remember that all through history, the way of truth and love have always won. There have been tyrants and murderers, and for a time they can seem invincible, but in the end, they always fail." Think of it. Always. And what a wonderful piece of reminder of history for all of us when we get into that dark place about anything in life, from the largest to the smallest things, where we get so attached to the idea of the darkness or the negativity or the evil or whatever we think it is that's going on. So shifting gears begins to allow us to cultivate something else rather than to put out an energy that supports whatever apparent darkness seems to be going on. Because once we get in rhythm with that, what we're really doing is enhancing that. We may not make it stronger in the world, but we certainly make it stronger in our experience. And we may also put a little drop of it in, that makes it stronger in the world, which is not what we want to be supporting. Lao Tzu, the founder, so to speak, of Taoism, said, "Be careful what you water your dreams with. Water them with worry and fear, and you will produce weeds that choke the life from your dream. Water them with optimism and solutions, and you will cultivate success." Always be on the lookout for ways to turn a problem into an opportunity for success. Always be on the lookout for ways to nurture your dream. So that partly has to do with who we choose to be around and who we choose to tell our dreams to and who we choose to listen to about those things, who advises us. And when our friends tell us negativity about their situation, rather than trying to save ourselves from catching their vibration by trying to fix them, because immediately when you go towards somebody else's negativity with an attempt to fix them, what happens is they begin to do this and resist, even when they know you're right. Because it's irritating to have somebody try and drag you out of your experience, isn't it? I mean, we want to be better than that, but really there's a part of us that just goes into, don't tell me what to do. So if we can, with friends, when they're going on and on about their difficulties, just inwardly. One of my first practitioners when I was a new minister would tell a story about an old woman who was somebody that neighbors would go to when they had problems. And she would sit on her porch in her rocking chair with her corncob pipe, and they would tell her their problems, and she'd just rock and say, "'Tain't so." And that was her response. That was like her affirmation. "'Tain't so." I recommend you don't say that to somebody else, but it's easy to think it because it's short, right? It's just 2 words, "'Tain't so." And it will assist us to see them in a happier light as we listen without giving too much energy to the negative that they're experiencing. So we want to lift ourselves out of that, but we want to honor other people's journey at the same time. And the tricky part is that often when we are trying to remind other people of what they know to be true, particularly when they're in this philosophy with us, well, don't complain, you don't want to make that a reality. What we're really trying to do is to get them to stop talking about that so we'll feel more comfortable. So there is a hidden motivation under there, right? That isn't really supportive of them and isn't really trying to get them to be more positive. It's more like we want them to stop crying or calm down or stop being mad or just shut up, instead of just letting them be and seeing them whole. Because really, if we're disturbed by what somebody else is sharing, the work is ours then. Otherwise, we wouldn't be there in front of them, somebody else would be. Is this making sense what I'm saying to you? So we're kind of called to do our own personal work when we're feeling uncomfortable about somebody else's negativity. Some part of me in the back of my mind is screaming, no, because I'd really rather give advice. No. what we want to do is shift from all that worry and dread into balance, into peace, into optimism, that we could see through it like it's a fog. And behind the fog, behind the mask or the disguise we're seeing of the other person, we decide to see their wholeness in spite of the appearance in front of us, to see their wholeness. Now that's meeting that difficulty with optimism, because we know that's not the truth of them any more than it's the truth of us. It's just a momentary passing thing. And we can have faith in that other person that they'll find their way out of that too, particularly when we're contributing our vision of their wholeness inwardly to the atmosphere of that conversation in love. Nelson Mandela, and this amazes me, said, "I am fundamentally an optimist. How in the world, after all those years in prison in South Africa, could he be an optimist? I am fundamentally an optimist. Whether that comes from nature or nurture, I cannot say. Part of being optimistic is keeping one's head pointed toward the sun, one's feet moving forward. There were many dark moments when my faith in humanity was sorely tested, but I would not and could not give myself up to despair. That way lays defeat and death." What an astounding thing for Nelson Mandela to have said. I don't think any of us in this room, I certainly hope that no one here and nobody online has experienced that level of difficulty to meet in their lives. Howard Zinn said, "What we choose to emphasize in this complex history will determine our lives. If we see only the worst, it destroys our capacity to do something. If we remember those times and places, and there are so many, where people have behaved magnificently, this gives us the energy to act, and at least the possibility of sending this spinning top of a world in a different direction. There is something about that that energizes us and other people, that lifts us up. So we want to have an intention, at least, to meet life that way and to have an affirmative intention. So we're not just saying, I'm doing this so that all this negativity can be dissolved, but rather we're looking affirmatively at the circumstance and refusing to let it overwhelm us or dampen us. And sometimes what we need to do is be able to step back from it, to take a break and regroup, because we find ourselves getting mired in the quicksand, and we know at the rate that we're thrashing around in there that we're most likely going to sink. So the best thing to do is to just relax and move ourselves away from that, get recentered, breathe a little before we enter the fray once again, because sometimes we can't just keep going in the moment. But our intention is to affirm that we can meet that with peace and equanimity, increasing gradually as we go forward. And when we do that, we need to be able to release our attachment to a specific outcome, to an outcome that looks a specific way. Because remember, all the good ideas that we have about what might be the right way to go still don't encompass all the possibilities of what might come together to resolve the situation. And there are always more possibilities than we can imagine. So we don't want to be so attached to specific outcomes that we actually limit what could happen, but rather to open to a good greater and larger than we even could imagine, and get a sense of what that would feel like. And just imagine that feeling, that energy permeating this difficulty, and knowing that we will find our way through it to something better, maybe even better than we have imagined. Or if it's hard to do that, we can affirm the highest and best that we can imagine, and then say, this or something better. I welcome, acknowledge, call for and accept this or something better, something greater, the vision of spirit, the largest, highest, most magnificent thing that is possible to come forward in this situation. In 1 Corinthians, St. Paul said, "Let us then keep the feast, not with the leaven of evil thoughts and acts, but with the unleavened bread of true thoughts and right feelings." With the unleavened bread. So it hasn't risen yet, but it has the potential to rise. So we want to go to that place where whatever's before us, we begin to be available to it, welcoming and open and willing. There's a difference between will and willingness. Will is, I'm going to make this happen. Willingness is allowing it to unfold in the direction that we're supporting in consciousness, to allow it to go the direction that it needs to go. This person who has these two tattoos, what it is the chop wood and carry water. Before enlightenment, chop wood and carry water. Do the work that's in front of you. After enlightenment, chop wood and carry water. The activity of life is the same. We don't expect everything in our lives to suddenly become absolutely easy and without difficulty from here forward. We don't expect that. Otherwise, there'd be no reason for us to be here playing this game and learning these things. We would already be there. But we are here. So there's a reason for us to continue to do what is in front of us as long as we're here. But our experience of it and our attitude toward it can change. Ram Dass was at a retreat. I remember him telling this story. He was at a retreat and he was unpacking in his room, and there were bunk beds in the room. And there was a fellow in the room with him who was unpacking the upper bunk, and they got into a conversation. And Ram Dass said to him, "What do you do?" And he said, "I'm a loan officer for a bank, a commercial loan officer for a bank." And Ram Dass said, "Really? You're a commercial loan officer for a bank. How do you happen to be here at this meditation retreat?" And the fellow said, "Well, it's an interesting story." He said, "Years ago, I was the commercial loan officer for the bank, and I was good at my job, but it seemed like everybody was having more fun than me. This was in the 60s, he said, and I just saw that everything was going on in the world, things were changing, and here I was stuck at the bank. So I quit my job, I sold my house, I gave my stuff away, I went on the road, I lived on a commune, I learned how to throw pots, I grew pot, I did all these things, and then one day I was in the city, happened to be walking down the street, and the president of the bank ran into me on the street, and he said, "Funny I should run into you. You were the best vice president of industrial loans I ever had. And you know what? Your position just became available then. How about coming back to work for us?" He said, and I thought, why not? So I bought a few ties, and I went back to work at the bank. And Ram Dass said, "Is it any different for you now than it was before?" He said, "Oh, it's entirely different. Before, I was the vice president of industrial loans for the bank. Now, I go to this place, and I hang out with these people all day, and the vehicle for my being with them is industrial loans." Very different perspective. Still chopping wood and carrying water. Different experience. Different presence. Different activity within the same responsibilities. You with me here? So in this process of growth, of evolution, it doesn't mean that the difficulties that we meet go away, but that they look different to us and that we have a different attitude toward them when we come from an evolved place, when we resolve that we're going to evolve a little in that area and we're going to remember it. Noam Chomsky said, "Optimism is a strategy for making a better future." Because unless you believe the future can be better, it's unlikely you'll step up and take responsibility for making it so. If you assume there's no hope, you guarantee that there will be no hope. So clearly, Ernest Holmes, our founder, said, there's nothing wrong with hope. Hope is fine. Hope is better than despair. But we want to actually notch up from hope to faith also. But we have to cultivate that hope. Winston Churchill said, the positive thinker sees the invisible, feels the intangible, and achieves the impossible. I'd go for that. Of course, I want to do it effortlessly, but that's another story. So when we are welcoming and open and willing to meet a difficulty, it increases the likelihood of good outcomes. And that's definitely what we want to do. We want to improve our possibilities. It also allows for our greater peace during the process. So, like I was talking about earlier, if I discover, oh, I did that badly, now I don't feel so good. I did that badly. So now I go back and say, I'm sorry, I did that badly. Can I have a do-over? Or if you're golfers, can I have a mulligan? Erase. Let's go back and start this again. Or whatever I need to do in order to give myself a fresh start. People who run races, if they run hurdles races, if they trip over a hurdle and fall down, usually they don't just sit there. And they don't burst into tears. And they don't walk off the track. They get up and they run until they get to the end of the race, no matter where they are in the race, because that's their attitude, that at least for me, I'm going to complete this race. That I can do. And for us too. The good thing about us is we're going to complete the race. It's a given. We will either wake up in our lifetime here, or whatever we do next, we'll be working on it there, and it's fine, because in the long run, we're all going to land in that place. And so in the process, we should have a little fun and get a little bit relaxed. Helen Keller said, optimism is the faith that leads to achievement. Nothing can be done without hope and confidence. And also, our founder, Ernest Holmes, said, rightly approached, positive thinking does not mean aggressiveness or the use of willpower, but rather a dynamic, affirmative attitude toward life. We're not trying to beat other people up with our positivity. We're not trying to force them to get more optimistic because it would make the world better if you just get it right. No, instead, what we're trying to do is just bring ourselves along into that greater whole that's already there. It may be, I think this isn't true, but it may be, I don't know, that everybody else in the world is just playing their role until I wake up. That all of you out here are just pretending to be whoever you are to me to help me wake up. And I'm like the last one in the universe that needs to wake up, and everybody is supporting that. Well, in a way, that's what's true for all of us. The universe of infinite support is around us all the time, cheering us on, but not at all disappointed at the time that it takes us to actually get there, because there's no time and space in the infinite, so it's all just the play of life that we're in the midst of. We don't need to despair over our slowness in any of these areas. We don't need to be more spiritual than we are, because the wholeness is already here. Our job is just to discover it, which we are doing, little by little, we're doing it. And it is the way that we approach it that makes all the difference. So I want to conclude with this story today, which I think is kind of amazing. Yes, so we're growing our consciousness for future experiences, and that's exactly what this fellow had done, I believe. In 1982, Steve Callahan was crossing the Atlantic Ocean alone in his sailboat when it struck something and sank. He was out of the shipping lanes and floating in a life raft alone. His supplies were few, his chances were small. Yet when 3 fishermen found him 76 days later, the longest anyone has survived a shipwreck on a life raft alone, he was alive. Much skinnier than he was when he started out, but alive. His account of how he survived is fascinating. His ingenuity, how he managed to catch fish, how he fixed his solar still to evaporate seawater to make it fresh, is very interesting. But the thing that caught my eye, this writer says, was how he managed to keep himself going when all hope seemed lost, when there seemed no point in continuing the struggle, when he was suffering greatly, when his life raft was punctured, and after more than a week struggling with his weak body to fix it, it was still leaking air and wearing him out to keep pumping it up. He was starved, he was desperately dehydrated, he was thoroughly exhausted. Giving up would have seemed the only sane option. When people survive these kinds of circumstances, they do something with their minds that gives them the courage to keep going. Many people in similarly desperate circumstances give in or go mad. Something that survivors do with their thoughts helps them find the guts to carry on in spite of overwhelming odds. I tell myself, I can handle it, wrote Callahan in his narrative. Compared to what others have been through, I'm fortunate. I tell myself these things over and over, building up fortitude. I wrote that down after I read it. It struck me as something important. And I've told myself the same thing when my own goals seemed far off or when my problems seemed too overwhelming. And every time I've said it, I've always come back to my senses. The truth is, our circumstances are only bad compared to something better. But others have been through much worse. I've read enough history to know you and I are lucky to be where we are and when we are. No matter how, bless you, no matter how bad, except that was probably a bark actually, but bless you anyway. No matter how bad it seems to us compared to our fantasies, it's a sane thought and worth thinking. So here, coming to us from the extreme edge of survival are words that can give us strength. Whatever you're going through, tell yourself you can handle it. Compared to what others have been through, you're fortunate. Tell this to yourself over and over, and it will help you get through the rough spots with a little more fortitude. So there you have it. Here are some ways, if we just decide to remember them and do them, that can help us meet difficulty with optimism. Namaste. All right. Oh, I want you to see this. I love this little cartoon. The turtle is actually on the ground looking at the sky. But as he's looking at the sky, it seems to him that he's floating in midair. And so he says, "Oh my God, I'm flying." That's optimism. So the next time you find yourself upside down, it's a good time to remember that you're flying. That's what it is. Just reinterpret what you're experiencing. So let's take a moment and ground this in prayer now. In this space of infinite being and possibility that is God, I am. We are. In this space of infinite possibility and being, God is manifesting himself, herself, itself, themselves as us, as Earth, as the universe, as all of the mystery that is unmanifest in the universe. And so we know that there are infinite possibilities for outcomes that are beautiful, uplifting, inspiring, healing, amazing, right where we are right now, in the world, in this century, in this country, on this planet, in our personal lives, all the way into our global beingness, all the way into our presence in the Milky Way and beyond. There are numberless opportunities for beautiful, gorgeous, happy, wonderful outcomes. We don't know what they all are, and we don't need to. Instead, we open. We open with willingness. We open with balance. We open with optimism. We open with welcome to allow these wonderful possibilities and opportunities to show themselves and manifest in our lives, to reveal themselves so clearly that we're compelled to take positive action toward them, that we are eager to see them come forward into greater and greater and greater beauty and manifestation. We're deeply grateful for this capacity in us. We're deeply grateful for the memory that allows us to return to this again and again and reaffirm it. We're grateful to the creative law that supports all of this. And so we release all of this knowing, all of this welcoming into that creative law of mind and spirit, which operates now to bring it into our experience, into our awareness. We let it go also into the center of the divine presence, into, as it were, the heart of God, where it always has been the truth and is already done. So we let it go and we just let it be. And together we say, and so it is. Yes, please stand and join me for the morning affirmation. We say this together. I choose to meet difficulty with trust in the divine presence around and within me. Each time I do this, my faith increases. My optimism brings me more opportunities to feel optimistic and more positive outcomes to celebrate. And so it is. You may be seated. And we shift now into our offering time. So I want to invite our ushers to come forward now as we prepare our gifts. Now, if you're sitting in a chair here this morning, or you're standing up and walking around, or you're sitting, on the perimeter somewhere, you are the gift. You are the gift here by your presence. We want to bless that gift. We also welcome all of the gifts of substance that you're sharing with us this morning or throughout the week, and all of the gifts that Golden Gate has received from people online who have sent their automatic pledges in by mail or however they've done it. We want to bless all of that with great love. If you're online and you want to text an offering, you can do it at the number on the screen. For those in the room, the back side of your bulletin in the lower left corner tells you all the ways that you can give. But the most important thing we do is we begin with this blessing. So if you're giving your gift today, hold it over your heart or hold it in your hands with a loved one if you two are giving it together. And if you are not giving a particular gift, still put your hands over your heart because we're also blessing you as we say this together. This gift I give is God in action. I now send it forth to bless and to prosper. I know that everywhere it goes, it is creating a world living in love, one heart and one thought at a time. And so it is.
Every good thing you can imagine, every high trail that you can climb, every new depth that you can sink to, every deep breath that you can find, every surprise that I can treasure catches me off guard every time. Every new thrill is too much to measure, letting it fill this heart of mine. Why don't we make this last forever? Live every moment one by one. Give it a chance, never say never. Take the magic as it comes. Every road we may travel rises up to meet us as we go. There is no detail we can't handle. Heaven knows we're never far from home. Why don't we make this last forever? Live every moment one by one. Give it a chance, never say never. Take the magic as it comes. Every good thing you can imagine. Every high trail that you can climb. Every surprise that I can treasure catches me off guard every time. Every good thing, every good thing, every good thing, every good thing, every good thing.
Yeah. Thank you, Gary. Every good thing. So now, on behalf of Golden Gate Center for Spiritual Living, we do, all of us together, accept this offering with great gratitude. And we send it off into the world so that it might quietly, subtly seed optimism everywhere it goes. And so it is. Yes. So if you are here with us for the very first time this morning, we have a special table for you in the back. I don't have my blue card. Right back at this table back here, where Galen is standing, we have welcome packets for you. Now, there's all sorts of stuff back there you're welcome to pick up, free handouts and stuff, but the welcome packet's especially important. There's a blue card in it that says welcome at the top. If you fill that out and give it to Galen, she's going to give you a little book as our thank you gift for being here this morning. And also, it's our invitation to you to come back and be with us often in the future. If this is your first time with us online, send me an email at revmary@ggcsl.org, and we will send you one of these little books as our thank you, an invitation to come back and be with us online again in the future. So thank you for that. We appreciate that very much. And also, this wonderful altar this morning by the Frost family, you see all these little houses here? They are optimistically seeding, so you'll see a lot of seeds up here as well, optimistically seeding their vision for a new home. Now, we want to join them in knowing that their new home that they're going to buy and own is theirs now. Is theirs now. So I want you to just take a moment and imagine Karen and Randy and Duncan and Bridget all happily settled with their dog and their cat in their new home. It's wonderful, it's beautiful, it's affordable, it's positioned perfectly for them. We are, by just thinking about that, adding water and fertilizer and sunshine to their seeds. Yes? So we want to acknowledge the Frost family for their vision and for joining together with them and seeing this as a reality now. Yeah. Yay. Also, I want to thank everybody who helped create this morning. Let's give them all a hand. The snack people, the prayer table, the everything. Okay? Thanks everybody for being here. Next week is our summer picnic. Yay! Now, Paula was telling me that not very many people have signed up for food. This makes me very nervous because, you know, if there are 6 of us here and we're trying to make sure we all bring enough food, and then 40 people show up at the picnic, it's going to be disaster. Ever gone to a picnic where there's not enough food for you? I've been to smorgasbords and lines and stuff at events and churches where I was so busy talking to people that by the time I got over to the food, there was hardly anything left. That's no fun. So please sign up for something so that we know you're coming, and also so that we know there's going to be food. I think we need drinks. Do we still need drinks?
We need some drinks that are ice cold.
Cold drinks.
Because it's going to be warm next Sunday. And the tables are going to be reserved. They're going to be in that corner.
Yes, out here in that corner.
Plus Russ's and some of the guys are really going to...
Guys are barbecuing, yeah. So side salads, desserts, snacky things, cold drinks. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We're bringing all that stuff next week. And we invite you to do that and to come and be with us. Karen's going to be here in the morning, Karen Drucker. So we'll have Karen, and then we'll go right out over there and have a wonderful picnic. And you can park, in the other parking lot. Go down Tamalpais and park. Not this one so much. Not that one. Not that one so much. The other one's, I don't know, over there somewhere. I can't really orient myself. I am directionally challenged, but you get the idea. Okay. Also, Dr. Suzanne Dubois is going to be doing a workshop, just a one-day, 3-hour workshop on writing as a spiritual practice. If you've been reluctant to try it as a class because you're not sure you commit to all that, you can get a taste in this 3-hour workshop, which will be at our Learning Center in August on the 20th. And you can sign up for that at the back table this morning or email our administrator at ggcsl.org to let her know that you're interested. And Suzanne is over here. One of these Sundays, pretty soon, we'll have her stand up and tell you about it. But you can always go to Suzanne this morning and ask her how this is going to go if you'd like to find out more. Also, Paula, who is at the back table, would love to talk to you about Sunday morning hospitality. That is everybody that comes to help ush, greet, and serve food. It's very simple. It's only once a month. It will give you an opportunity to connect with that team and also to meet some of our congregants if you want an opportunity to meet some that you don't already know. So we encourage that. You can talk to Paula for info and bring snacks for Sundays. We're on that summer schedule where everybody is called to bring snacks. So any Sunday that you get a wild hair to bring a snack, do that. And make sure it's plated and ready to go, and we'll just be so happy to have it. Be great. Also, I want to invite you to the Wednesday meditation. This week, the meditation coming up at 7:15 on Zoom is visioning. If you haven't experienced visioning, bring paper and pen, and if you want to come and sit in your shorts or underwear, depending on how hot it is, as long as you have a shirt on, nobody will know. You can just come and participate with us. It's about an hour, and it's a wonderful experience to do visioning together. Everybody's welcome. You can join from the calendar link on our webpage. Okay, and remember, prayer is always available. You can get it on Sunday morning over here from one of the practitioners on duty. You can put a request in the box. You can take a list of practitioners if you want to contact someone for direct prayer, or call our inspiration line to get a prayer 24/7. All those things are available. So practitioners, would you surround the room now so we can bless this group before we send them off into this gorgeous, beautiful day? We're going to do a chamber of prayer now, which means that all of us will be praying simultaneously, but not in unison. So, and look at how many of us there are. I mean, if you're sitting out there, you're just getting the fullness of it because it's washing from one side to the other. So just take it in, even though you can't tell what we're saying. Just take it in as your blessing today, all right? So here we go. In this moment, I recognize a divine presence within me and all around me, as all there is. I claim for each one present here today the most marvelous day, lifting them up in hopefulness, in optimism, in delight, in gratitude for all the goodness that surrounds and fills them on this day. available to do better, to evolve, and to experience the goodness of who and what they are. I claim this for each one of us now with such deep gratitude that this is our essence already. We are coming into awareness of who we are now. I'm so grateful I release this word into the creative law of mind and spirit and let it go. And let it be. And so it is. And so it is. Please stand and join us now for the closing blessing and song. And this is another thing that we do in unison at the end of the service. So we do say this together as one. I now walk so that whoever walks beside me dwells in the presence of God. And whoever places a hand in mine is lifted. And whoever thinks of me is illumined with God consciousness. For spirit and all people and I are one eternally. And so it is. We know
Thanks
this
so much
one.
for having me with you again this morning. As you go into your week, I give you this blessing. Repeat it after me. Love be with you.
Love be with you.
Peace enfold you.
Peace enfold you.
Spirit lift you.
Spirit lift you.
Breathe it in.
Breathe it in.
Truth come through you.
Truth come through you.
May good flow to you.
May good flow to you.
Let joy renew you.
Let joy renew you.
Till we meet again.
Till we meet again.
Great. Love be with you. Love be with you. Love be with you. Love be with you. You sound
know this part,
wonderful.
actually.
Listen to this part. All together, hand in hand, we see the light, we take a stand, and we are changing. A whole new life for you and me. Take your past and set it free. Share this blessing. Here we go. Love be with you. Peace enfold you. Spirit lift you. Breathe it in. Truth come through you. May good flow to you. Let joy renew you. Till we meet again. Love be with you. Ooh, 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 love be with you. I love you. See you next time.